Hello, this is Phillip welcoming you to the 2097th edition of the Enfield Talking newspaper. Dateline is the 18th of May 2017. And your readers this week are Phillip and Ali, with Peter on the controls. The editor was Phillip and Ali, and the production and distribution team is Lindsay and Jean. Our title music is Country Rock Polka, composed by Pat Prilly, Fernand Bouillon, Harry Breuer, and performed by Jean-Jacques Perry, and is used with his kind permission. Local stories that we'll be reading come from our local newspapers, the Enfield Gazette and Advertiser and the Enfield Independent, and are their copyright. The events information has been collated by us from other sources. Local news headlines this week are Stop This Madness and Grandad's Sadness as he shuts family shop after 86 years. Before the news, we have one or two special items and announcements. First, a notice from Enfield Vision, and their next forum meeting will take place on Monday the 5th of June at Park Avenue Disability Centre from 7 until 9 p.m. The speaker this time is Susan from Deafblind UK. And a note about Enfield Vision's AGM, which takes place on Monday the 3rd of July at the Park Avenue Disability Centre at 7 o'clock. Limited transport will be available, and you can contact our listeners' representative Diane de Jersey on 020-8805-6578 for more information about those Enfield Vision events and any other issues you have, comments or notices you'd like us to read out on the Enfield Talking newspaper. And now Ali will read the first item of local news.
Stop this madness. As violence and bloodshed spilled onto Enfield's streets at the weekend, worried residents called for an end to it. Angela Bailey, a mum from Enfield Highway, organised a peace rally and walked the same steps where 2 days earlier hundreds of young people had flooded the streets after a party turned nasty and spiralled out of control. 3 teenagers were stabbed, one fatally. The following day, just a quarter of a mile away, another man was stabbed in the head and leg and left with what police describe as life-changing injuries. As people look for answers, politicians are calling for an end to the bloodshed and looking at ways to combat this knife crime epidemic in the borough. The latest fatal stabbing, the third in the Enfield borough in the past 6 weeks, comes just over a week after a police operation recovered a frightening array of more than 100 knives, including a machete and lock knives. A total of 104 blades were recovered in the week-long capital-wide crackdown as part of the Metropolitan Police's Operation Sceptre. Police targeted habitual knife carriers and known offenders, as well as carrying out weapons sweeps of areas where gangs conceal knives and conducting test purchases using police cadets to catch shopkeepers breaking the law by selling knives to those under the age of 18. Officers made 28 arrests and carried out 45 stop and searches, 17 of which were positive, with 12 arrests for knife-related offences and 5 for possession of drugs, including 114 wraps of Class A drugs and 4 bags of cannabis. Out of 4 test purchases, 2 of the shops visited were found to have committed an offence. Of the 104 weapons recovered, 85 were the contents of special knife bins at police stations, where blades have been handed in as part of a weapons surrender scheme. This was designed to raise awareness about the consequences of carrying a knife, to target habitual knife carriers, and to arrest known offenders, said Detective Inspector Chris Skelt, who led the operation. This action was dedicated to sending a message out that police will deal with knife crime robustly and encouraging Londoners to give up their knives to dedicated knife bins in order to reduce crime and save lives. Due to the success of Operation Sceptre, and in light of the knife-related incidents in the borough, D.I. Skelt said that Enfield Police would follow it up with Operation Bremont. The borough-wide initiative will target knife crime and aim to reduce it in Enfield for the next 6 weeks.
And before the next story, a reminder of the sunrise and sunset times for the week beginning Monday, the 22nd of May, which I forgot to give you earlier, sorry. So sunrise is a little after 5 o'clock in the morning, 5:05 a.m, and sunset is a shade before 10 minutes to 9. And on with our next headline, Grandad's Sadness as he shuts family shop after 86 years. A grandfather who's preparing to sell the family business after nearly 9 decades says meeting different people has been the highlight of the job. Arthur Elms of Cecil Avenue, Enfield, took over Elms Trophies in Southbury Road from his dad, also called Arthur. The 67-year-old's grandfather, also called Arthur, opened it in 1931, and it once also included a sports shop. His grandparents, including grandmother Esther, used to live above the shop. But it was closed 25 years ago, and the firm began focusing on creating and designing trophies. Mr. Elm said, "I've spent my whole life here. When I was around 8 or 9, I used to take the strings out of tennis rackets and restring them. They were all strung by hand, so I've still carried on with that tradition. I remember sitting on the edge of the bench while my granddad mixed the glue for his leather work. That smell sticks in my memory." Although he's tried to sell the shop in the hope the business would continue to flourish, he received little interest. Instead, he's sold the building to a hairdresser. He added, "I've loved meeting people and doing jobs for them, especially when they're happy with my work. People have always been very friendly. I've thoroughly enjoyed my life here. It's been brilliant. I'm so grateful to everyone who has spent their time and money with me." His son, Rutland Arthur, did not go into the family trade, instead opting to be an estate agent in Bethnal Green. He also has one daughter, Rachel, with his wife Maureen, and 4 grandchildren aged 1 to 8 years old. He added, "I'm going to spend my retirement playing golf, which I've been doing since I was 16. I'm learning to sail, and I'm going to spend time with my grandsons."
Politicians offer help in wake of tragedy. Enfield's Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Public Health, Crystal Fonyonga, held an emergency meeting following the weekend of bloodshed in the borough. She met with fellow Cabinet members on Monday and let them know that knife arches in stabbing hotspots, high visibility police patrols and more undercover operations to stop shopkeepers selling knives to underage kids were among 10 measures being discussed with intelligence teams in Enfield Police. Ms. Fonyonga said, "It makes me angry and frustrated that at a time when knife crime is on the increase, the Met is being stretched so thin. It's just so sad what happened on Saturday. I drove past and felt so sad. We're already working closely with the police, considering knife arches, increased CCTV in hotspots they have identified, more patrols and seizing weapons. We've talked about a lot of these things and working with schools on prevention work, carrying on. But we need more money from central government to put into this. Policing is not where we should see cutbacks and austerity measures. The bloodshed has led to calls across the political divide for tougher sentences on those found guilty of carrying knives." Joan Ryan, Labour's parliamentary candidate in Enfield North, where 18-year-old Joan Gomes was murdered, said, "4 more young people have been stabbed, one fatally, on the streets of Enfield over the weekend. This is a tragedy for 4 more families, and it's also a tragedy for the whole community in Enfield. It is completely unacceptable for this to be happening. People in Enfield have a right to feel safe and be safe in their homes and in our neighbourhoods. We also have a duty to act to prevent more young people dying or being injured in this way." Nick Dubois, Conservative parliamentary candidate in Enfield North, said, "This is a time for the community to come together. There is no one-stop, quick-fix solution to this hideous problem. But by working with experienced anti-knife campaign groups, police, schools, community leaders and lawmakers, we can tackle the scourge of knife crime."
Hospital fills void in wake of cyber attack. Ambulances diverted to North Middlesex as computers crash. Staff at North Middlesex University Hospital battled to take up the slack after scores of ambulances were diverted there and trauma patients were admitted following the major national cyber attack. Hackers took control of computers and cut off phone lines in hospitals on Friday, causing mayhem and leaving large sections of NHS services down over the weekend. Although the hospital in Stirling Way, Edmonton wasn't hacked, the internet and internal email system was shut down on Friday and given a robust overhaul as a precaution against further attacks. The internet connection was back up on Monday, and the hospital said that patients who were still able to text or phone were not affected. A spokesman for North Middlesex said, "Our priority was to support our NHS partners who'd been affected by the cyber attack and to ensure all patients received high-quality care. On Friday and Saturday, our accident and emergency department took in additional patients who'd been diverted by ambulance from Barts Health NHS Trust, which includes St Bartholomew's Hospital, the Royal London Hospital and Whipps Cross University Hospital. and we received trauma patients from the Royal London once they were well enough to be removed, relieving the pressure on their hard-pressed services. The ransomware virus that hit the NHS in England and Scotland, known as WannaDecryptor or WannaCry, infected 200,000 machines in 150 countries. Europol, the EU's law enforcement agency, has called the cyber attack the largest ransomware attack observed in history. A statement issued by the NHS Enfield Clinical Commissioning Group said, "We took immediate action to limit the impact of the ransomware attack by shutting down all IT systems as a precautionary measure following advice from NHS Digital. A software patch has now been installed to ensure our IT systems are not vulnerable to the ransomware."
Nominations close with 14 election candidates. 14 would-be MPs will be seeking the votes of Enfield residents in next month's general election, following the closure of nomination of candidates last week. The hopefuls will be contesting the borough's 3 parliamentary seats on Thursday, June the 8th. Among the candidates are several familiar faces, including all 3 seeking re-election and others who have stood in previous general elections. All will be aiming to persuade electors to vote for them during the remaining 3 weeks of campaigning and hoping to avoid losing their £500 deposit should they fail to receive a 5% share of the votes. The full line-up is Edmonton: Donald Daniels, Conservative; Benjamin Gill, Green; Kate Osamore, Labour; David Schmitz, Liberal Democrat; Nigel Sussman, UKIP; Enfield North: Deborah Cairns, UKIP; Nicholas da Costa, Liberal Democrat; Nick Dubois, Conservative; Bill Linton, Green; Joan Ryan, Labour. Enfield Southgate: David Burrows, Conservative; Ambos Charalambos, Labour; David Flint, Green; Pippa Morgan, Liberal Democrat.
Moving here for the beer. Roll out the barrel. Enfield is set to become the location for a new £30 million riverside brewery. The state-of-the-art plant, which is due to open in July, is on the River Lee in Ponders End. It's been built by Kentish town-based Camden Town Brewery, which has outgrown its premises. The company, which produces flagship lager Camden Hells among its beers, needs to increase capacity to keep up with demand. The existing brewery employs 15 staff, and the workforce is expected to double when the new brewery opens. The modern brewery is energy efficient and features a solar-panelled roof. It'll be open to the public, offering weekend tours and a brewing school with a steel bar in the middle where visitors can sample the ales. Jasper Cuppiage, founder and chief executive of the Camden Town Brewery, said, "Our expansion to Enfield allows us to increase our capacity, so ultimately we can bring great beer to more people. It's a phenomenal opportunity to extend into another North London community and to be part of the impressive redevelopment that's taking place in Enfield." The company is retaining its existing brewery underneath railway arches in Kentish Town, and it'll be used as a test site for new beers. Enfield Council's Cabinet Member for Economic Development, Alan Sitkin, said he was delighted to welcome Camden Town Brewery to Enfield, and the huge investment that would help return the borough to its former industrial glory. Camden's industrial employment ambitions work perfectly with the strategies of the council, in particular looking to secure employment and jobs in our borough and encourage residents to learn great trade for a great industry, he said.
Hundreds protest at schools' £100,000 cuts. Campaigners call for extra funding. A group of concerned parents, teachers and campaigners has written to David Burrows, the prospective parliamentary candidate for Enfield Southgate, demanding he fight central government's proposed education funding cuts. More than 200 people from Hazelwood schools in Palmer's Green insist the cuts will have an adverse effect on the curriculum. The letter states, Hazelwood schools have over the past few years reduced their budget by £100,000 due to the pressure of flat cash funding. This has meant fewer teaching assistants in the school, which impacts on pupils' learning and the school's capacity to support individuals with specific needs. This financial year, the school has only been able to set a balanced budget by cutting its costs by £140,000. This has meant not replacing a member of the senior leadership team, and by reducing its spend on core budgets such as staff training, pupil resources, ICT and consumable materials. The letter goes on, Hazelwood is set to lose £150,000 through the national funding formula. Over the next 3 years, they are set to lose £60,000 through a drop in pupil premium, £108,000 through changes to SEND funding, and £150,000 due to flat cash funding. Head teacher Nikki Ross said, "Whilst we will continue to work hard to protect the children from the impact of these cuts, it will inevitably damage their learning experience." Mr Burrows said, "I am pressing for the next budget after the election to include increased funding."
Murder inquiry. A murder investigation has been launched after a teenager was killed in a suspected street fight. Police were called shortly after 10:30 p.m. on Saturday to a fight involving a number of people in Hertford Road, Enfield. 3 people were found with stab injuries and were taken to hospitals in North and East London by the London Ambulance Service. An 18-year-old was pronounced dead, while a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old were treated for non-life-threatening injuries. Detectives from the Homicide and Major Crime Command Unit are investigating. Any witnesses with information that may assist the investigation should contact police on 101 or tweet @METCC. Information can also be reported anonymously to Crime Stoppers on 0800 555 111 or online at www.crimestoppers-uk.org. No arrests have so far been made.
I owe them a lot. A heart-wrenching account of the effects of bereavement, the negative side effects of withdrawing from cannabis, dependency, and isolation was told during an awareness week. Lucas House, Enfield, is a service for adults aged between 18 and 65, diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar affective disorder, psychotic depression, and other psychotic disorders. The person who wishes to remain anonymous slid uncontrollably into severe mental ill health after his mother passed away, regained strength to strive for ambitions, reunite with old friends, and do the things they love again after seeking help. The person took the brave step when he acknowledged the signs revealing his mental health decline. Explaining what happened just over a year ago, he said, "I began hearing voices, had delusional thoughts about people watching me, and at times believed I had special abilities." After an appointment with his doctor, he was referred to the early intervention team at Lucas House, which helps people recover from severe mental health conditions. He said, "I had an introductory group session where I got to meet others who were a similar age to me and who also had psychosis. My symptoms freaked me out. It was frightening. The group told me they'd gone through similar things, which was reassuring. We covered ways of challenging negative ideas and how to approach doing something new." Simon Clark, the early intervention team manager at Lucas House, became his weekly care coordinator. With Simon's guidance, improvements led to acceptance onto an open university program to study engineering, the rebuilding of friendships, and training in martial arts again. He said, "It was like chatting with a mate. Simon helped me get on the course, keep on top of my homework. He assured me when I had concerns. When I didn't do so well on my assignments, he'd always put a really positive spin on it. He helped me continue." Simon kept pushing me to get in touch with former friends who were still involved in martial arts and to find out if the teacher would have the class again. He had to get on my case about it, but eventually I called my mate George, and after he spoke to the teacher, I enrolled again. Enrolling in the martial arts class led to the rekindling of other former friendships interested in the discipline, and motivation for living a fuller life returned. He said, "I owe them a lot."
Pitched battle for Rugby Club's Fun Day. The crackle of muskets, the clash of armour, and the beating of drums thrilled spectators as Roundheads fought with Cavaliers on Sunday. The depiction of a Civil War skirmish between musketeers and pikemen was one of the attractions at Enfield Ignatian's Rugby Club's Fun Day. More than 300 revellers flocked to Enfield playing fields, where the club is based, and watched a battle staged by Historical Reenactment Society Sir Marmaduke Rawdon's Regiment of Foot. Later, spectators were allowed to take part in some of the drills. "It was a great opportunity for us to show a small amount of what we do as a reenactment group," said spokeswoman Rachel Dell. "I don't think we've ever had so many willing children participating in the kids' drill. We were very happy that Enfield Council gave us permission to fire our muskets, as it's always nice for the musketeers to show their stuff, and the crowd certainly enjoyed the spectacle." Martin Baker from the rugby club said it was a novel experience and described it as a family fun day with a difference.
Free events for all the family. Stay local this summer and make the most of the wide range of free activities available in the borough, says the leader of Enfield Council. Councillor Doug Taylor wishes people to support independent businesses and the immediate community by visiting the region's many shops and attractions as weather improves. He has highlighted the excellent plays and performances at Forty Hall, the Dugdale Centre and the Millfield, as well as the council's own Move More campaign, a speed skating track at Tatum Park and beautiful woodland at Trent Park. Councillor Taylor says, if you are on a budget, many of these activities are free, such as walking in our open spaces, using our green gyms, or walking around Forty Hall and its picturesque grounds. Now the weather is warming up, I would urge everyone to turn off the TV or computer, get out of the house and see for yourself the huge amount of activities and events that you can do in our busy borough. For details, visit www.enfield.gov.uk.
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's a fundraiser. A pow, zap, thwack. Onlookers did double takes, rubbing their eyes in amazement at the sight of hundreds of superheroes on a walkabout in Enfield on Friday night. A colourful cavalcade of masked and costumed crusaders snaked its way on a 15-kilometre route through the borough's streets and the town park as part of the annual fundraising night hike in aid of the Nightingale Cancer Support Centre in Lancaster Road, Enfield. More than 220 took part, many dressed as their favourite superhero, who observed this year's theme. The star had to be a tiny border terrier, dressed in a miniature Superman, or should that be super dog, costume, who took his owner on the hike. He was a big favourite with participants and onlookers, said the charity's fundraising manager Vicky Tofts. There were also lots of children who'd gathered with their parents, excited to see their favourite superheroes as they passed en route to the finish at Enfield Civic Centre. The centre in Silver Street, which doubled as a watering station, kept the hikers' superhuman strength from being sapped with supplies of donuts donated by Baker's Greggs and hot and cold drinks, including hot chocolate, which were handed out by street pastors at the finish line. Many of those taking part were cancer survivors, along with friends and family walking in remembrance of a loved one they've lost. Money raised from the night hike will go towards the services offered by the Nightingale Centre, which includes support for cancer patients and their families and carers, including counselling, emotional and physical support, head massage and reflexology, and education workshops. We try to be part of the community and get them to come to the centre so that they can socially interact and meet others who are in a similar situation and can offer them advice and companionship, added Vicky.
Dementia Awareness Week in full swing with a packed programme. Late onset dementia affects 3,000 across borough. A charity for people suffering with dementia is calling for others to get involved in a week-long programme of activities and events. Enfield Dementia Action Alliance is asking everyone in the borough to come together for Dementia Awareness Week, which began on Sunday. Enfield Asian Welfare Association Alpha Care Specialists, Enfield Age UK and Home Care Preferred, four of the many organisations taking part. Late-onset dementia is thought to affect 3,000 people in Enfield, and it is predicted to increase 44% over the next 20 years. Awareness and understanding of dementia remains low, and it can also be difficult for sufferers to accept and come to terms with. Many families are also facing it alone, according to Enfield Dementia Action Alliance. A spokesperson said, "Dementia is set to be the 21st century's biggest killer. Diagnosis is a difficult time for someone, and it can feel that people have nowhere to go and no one to support them. That's why during the week we want everyone to come together and to take action. By uniting, we can raise awareness, offer help and understanding of dementia." 7 members of Enfield Dementia Action Alliance met TV celebrity Angela Rippon, CBE, whose mother suffered from dementia at a Dementia 2020 conference last month. Ms. Rippon, inspired by her own personal experiences of caring for her mother Edna, who died in 2009, discussed creating dementia-friendly communities to help people with dementia live fulfilling lives. Jeremy Hughes, Chief Executive of Alzheimer's Society, said, "We're determined to bring everyone's attention to the massive injustice faced by people with dementia and their carers, with too many denied the support they need. Alzheimer's Society hears day in, day out about people with dementia and their carers who are struggling. Some people tell us about the impossible choices they have to make, from the carer having to choose between a knee operation and caring for her mum, to a man with young onset dementia who had to give up work and ask his daughter to pay the mortgage. We urgently need people to unite with us to improve care, offer help and understanding to those affected and find a cure. Together we can bring about change. For further information, visit www.dementiaaction.org.uk.
Bowls Club celebrates centenary. A bowls club established in Enfield during World War I celebrated its centenary with a fun game filled with obstacles. Members of Durrance Park Bowls Club had a knees-up and buffet in the clubhouse on Tuesday last week before stepping out for a light-hearted game. Players, whose average age is 80, had to circumnavigate a series of obstacles and challenges at the club in Durrance Park in Hertford Road, Ponders End. Resident Beryl Payne, aged 79, said, "It was a wonderful day. The weather held out for us, and we had a great time. We're a small club established in 1917. There's only about 20 of us, but it's a lovely, friendly group. The oldest member is 90 years old. Mrs. Payne has been playing for 34 years and said it's getting harder to recruit younger members, which could pose problems in the future. She said it's a lovely game, a gentle way of keeping fit and active. There's bending and walking, and it's a great way to meet friends. We play in a mixed league and a women's league and have a social evening on Tuesdays. But sadly, it's a game that people often only come to after retirement, and a lot of the bigger Enfield clubs are attracting members, but not us. We'd love to get some new members. Those interested can contact the club's secretary, Graham Horscroft, on 020 8804 3650.
The smart way to beat the burglars. Enfield's Top Cop has hailed as a success a burglary initiative which has seen a drastic drop in the level of reported break-ins. In parts of the borough where homeowners have received special kits with which to mark property with a traceable forensic liquid known as smart water, domestic break-ins have fallen significantly. Since the Met Trace programme was introduced in April 2015, the burglary rate in those areas has dropped by a total of 284 offences, with a reduction of 226 offences in the first 12 months. More than 20,505 smart water kits have been supplied to homes considered at high risk to burglaries since the programme was launched. Borough Police Commander, Detective Chief Superintendent Ian Raphael, has described the initiative as psychological warfare in which fear is transferred from property owners to burglars. Window stickers are also included in the kit, aimed at deterring potential burglars by making homes less appealing to break into. Every offender brought into custody has their belongings scanned in the police station as part of the project to test for the presence of smart water, which is registered on a database to the homeowner's address. The solution illuminates under UV light and only requires a speck to be detected. Mr. Raphael said it meant an average saving of about £690 on each prevented burglary, representing the individual cost of investigating an offence. The project has also helped people to fulfil duties more efficiently by saving 19 hours of officers' time on each prevented burglary. It has allowed officers to focus on fulfilling duties on other areas within the borough, said Mr. Raphael. He said the initiative had instilled more public confidence in the borough's police force. Another 10,000 kits will be distributed in Enfield this year. Among recent recipients is Eric Vekar from Edmonton, who says he now feels more confident knowing that treasured items such as his phone can be traced if stolen. It's reassuring to feel the house is now more secure, because the kit makes the burglar's job a lot harder, because it's more risky for them, said the 20-year-old who lives in Morley Avenue. The initiative is run in partnership with crime prevention company Smartwater and will be rolled out for another year. The project has proved extremely effective so far, and we hope it will be an even bigger success in the coming year, with numbers of burglaries continuing to drop, added Mr. Raphael.
Another mother whose life's been ripped apart. More police needed, March organiser tells Dubois. Enfield mum Angela Bailey broke her silence to confront a campaigning politician to demand more police in the borough at a peace march she organised on Monday evening in the wake of a spate of knife attacks. Miss Bailey, aged 40, led more than 80 protesters on a silent walk of peace to the Hindu temple in Hertford Road, Enfield Highway, where 18-year-old Yao Gomez was stabbed to death on Saturday night in a weekend of bloodshed on the streets. Among the crowd was Nick Dubois, who's hoping to recapture the Enfield North seat for the Tories in the general election. He championed tougher sentences for knife crime when he was last an MP and helped introduce the so-called Enfield's Law. Miss Bailey said the two strikes knife crime law was no good if there weren't enough police to enforce it. In a fiery exchange, she told him, "I'm not having my 9-year-old laying on the ground murdered because there are not enough police." Miss Bailey, who's a funeral director and lives in Hertford Road, witnessed Saturday's frenzied rampage when 3 boys were stabbed, one fatally, as violence flared among more than 150 youths, some as young as 14. Following Monday night's march, she said, "We felt we had to do something to say this is enough to knife crime. I have a son who's 9, and his dad's not around, so it's just me. I want him to know this is what can happen if you carry knives. We lit candles, and it was very emotional. I don't care if this young lad was in a gang or not, he's still somebody's son, and there's a mother out there whose life has been ripped apart." Joao, aged 18, was the latest victim of Enfield's deadly knife crime epidemic, the 3rd fatal stabbing in the past 6 weeks in the borough, after a private party held at the Dharma Mandir Community Centre spiralled out of control and ended in violence. 2 other teenagers, aged 17 and 19, were found nearby in Palmer's Lane suffering from stab injuries and were taken to hospital. They've since been discharged. Police spokesman said detectives from the Homicide and Major Crime Command have launched an investigation and retain an open mind as to the motive. There have been no arrests and inquiries continue. Witnesses should contact the incident room on 8217-6582 or via Twitter @MEtCC. Husband and wife, Joe and Kevin Storer, live next to the community centre where the party was held, and Mrs. Storer said, "There was a lot of noise, and then it got much louder. We went out to get the cats in, and there were hundreds of kids, some of them really young, shouting and fighting in the street. That was about 8:45. We went inside and locked the doors. It was frightening. We kept an eye on it. It was out of control. There were only 3 security on the door and hundreds of kids and no adults. Then at about 10:30 p.m, all these police turned up and the road was closed off. We didn't hear until the next day that somebody had been killed. It's tragic." The following day, a man in his 30s was stabbed in the head following a brawl outside Tesco in Southbury Road, Ponders End, at 2 p.m. He was taken to an East London hospital where he remains. His injuries are no longer being treated as life-threatening but are thought to be life-changing. At this stage, officers believe that the man was stabbed following an altercation with a group of males in Exeter Road.
Lee Valley celebrates 50 years. A regional park renowned for its outstanding sport and leisure facilities is celebrating its 50th year by giving away hundreds of free tickets. Lee Valley Regional Park Authority opened registration for entry to a ballot which allows applicants to apply for as many attractions and activities as they like on Thursday, and applications closed on Monday. If successful in the ballot, applicants will win tickets for one of their chosen events in celebration of the event Lee Valley Big 50. Activities and events include whitewater rafting at Lee Valley Whitewater Centre, go-karting at Rye House, tickets to 6-day London at Lee Valley Velo Park, family passes to Lee Valley Park Farms, and horse riding at Lee Valley Riding Centre. 50 years ago, much of the land in Lee Valley was neglected and in a state of disrepair following post-war reconstruction. Previously, Lee Valley had been a centre for armaments, engineering, electronics and chemical industries.
Try walking back to happiness. Walking is being encouraged as part of the promotion for people to lead healthier lifestyles. A campaign urging people to walk regularly is part of Enfield Council's Move More programme, with May being the charity Living Streets National Walking Month. Councillor Crystal Fonyonga, Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Public Health, said, "Walking is great exercise, and I'd encourage everyone to do it. National Walking Month is a fabulous opportunity to hit your stride, leave the car at home, and get out and about on foot. Suggested activities include walking with friends and family, a walking meet-up, walking to and from work, school or the shops, and taking a camera or smartphone on a photo walk." To find out more about Enfield Council's Move More campaign, visit www.enfield.gov.uk. Information about National Walking Month can be found at www.living-streets.org.uk.
She's sure to have a ball. Enfield's new mayor may have to make some sacrifices if her official civic engagements clash with Enfield Town Football Club's home fixtures. Christine Hamilton is a staunch supporter, and with her husband Ian and grandson Tom, she rarely misses a game at the Queen Elizabeth Stadium. The 67-year-old, who was installed as the new mayor during a ceremony in the council chamber last Wednesday evening, may have to forego that pleasure on the odd occasion. "They've done so well this season," said the mother of 2. "I love watching them live, and I've always been impressed by the fact that they're the first English club to be owned by its supporters. Mrs Hamilton has been an Enfield resident for 42 years, and as the new mayor, she aims to raise the profile and celebrate carers in the borough through her mayor's charity. I want to raise awareness of the unsung heroes and dedicated staff through the support of my charity called Enfield Cares, she said. I also want those who are looked after through these services to know they are valued members in our community and that there will always be a support network available to them. Through fundraising, she aims to make her charity inclusive and will work with a range of groups over the next 12 months, including Mind in Enfield, Tender Care and the Sickle Cell and Thalassemia charity at North Middlesex University Hospital in Edmonton. She wants her charity to highlight the help available for mental health patients and victims of bullying. She is also aiming to boost awareness of the outreach and support network for victims of domestic violence or hate crime. These services are vital for Enfield residents, and it is my intention to raise funds to make them sustainable in the future, she explained. Raising numbers of community group volunteers will also be a priority by encouraging residents to offer a few hours of their time to help others. Originally from Wigan in Greater Manchester, Mrs Hamilton said she has also stayed a supporter of Wigan Athletic Football Club after she moved to Enfield in 1975. Before becoming a Labour ward councillor for Enfield Highway in 2010 and serving 3 years as a cabinet member for public health, Mrs Hamilton worked in various roles in the NHS. They included running the Enfield Nurse Bank at North Middlesex Hospital and working as a unison negotiating officer before becoming a magistrate for Enfield and Haringey, as well as a childline volunteer. My background is strongly linked to public services to support the community, which has always been very rewarding, said the grandmother of 5, and I hope to further that through charity work during the year.
Undertakers raise money for Children's Hospital. A family-run Undertakers is appealing for help from local businesses and individuals to raise money for Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. Enfield Funeral Directors of Baker Street will sell delicious cakes and hot tea and coffee at their parlour on Wednesday, the 24th of May, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Funeral arranger Natasha Mercer said, "We're trying to raise as much money as we possibly can. I've spoken with so many families who struggle to come to terms with the heartache of losing their child at Great Ormond Street. To contact Miss Mercer, email info@enfieldfuneraldirectors.com or telephone 020 8364 6004.
Boost for Scouts Peru project. Scout Group has raised more than £600 for villagers living in a remote part of the Andes. The Hatters Explorer Scout Unit, Southgate, raised £623 from 2 cake sales and coffee mornings held on Sunday at Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Arnos Grove and St Monica's Church in Palmer's Green. Money will go towards building a 100-metre-long thermal mass greenhouse for villagers living in the Peruvian village of Viachi, who currently live off a potato-based diet. Greenhouse will provide the community with the conditions needed to grow a more nutritious and profitable produce and help improve the health of villagers, many of whom suffer from malnutrition. In August 2018, the Hatters will travel to Viacha, which is the poorest community in the area, to work with the community and build the long-awaited greenhouse. Rose Scott, 17, said, "It was lovely to catch up with the church members while making money for the project."
A very special celebration. Florence and George have been married for 70 years. 97-year-old George Coggin and his wife, Florence, aged 94, puckered up for a romantic kiss last week as the couple marked 70 years of marriage by celebrating their platinum wedding anniversary. There's a big picture of them with a huge cake with this article. The commemoration was remarkable not just because it's rare for couples to reach the milestone, but also because nowadays 42% of marriages end in divorce. Florence and George met as teenagers in 1939, where they shared their first dance at an event in King's Cross. Florence, who is 16, recalls what a beautiful dancer George had been at the age of 19, before he plucked up the courage to ask his future wife to join him on the dance floor. "He's been leading me a dance ever since," she joked. Shortly after they started courting, George was enlisted to the Territorial Army during World War II and became a prisoner of war after he was captured in 1940 by the Germans in Egypt. Throughout the ordeal, the couple managed to stay in touch by postcard, which was a great relief for Florence, who couldn't quite believe he made it home. The postcards are a treasured reminder of that time, and Florence was always impressed by George's beautiful writing. The couple married in 1947 in Islington and celebrated their honeymoon at a holiday camp in Clacton, which George remembers was marvellous. They started married life in Islington, where Florence worked as a civil servant, and George was an engineer and supervisor at the communications company British Telecom. They had 3 children, Catherine, Jennifer and Robert, and moved to Turnpike Lane in Haringey and Edmonton before settling in Oakwood. They retired in their 50s and enjoyed holidays abroad in Austria, Paris and Benidorm. After Florence had knee replacement surgery, she was no longer able to join George on the dance floor, but was always happy to watch him with another partner. The couple say the secret to a long and happy marriage has been give and take, as well as laughter, while marrying the right one has certainly helped.
Primary schools give rugby a try. Crowds of supporting parents cheered on youngsters as they played in Enfield's annual tag rugby tournament for primary schools last week. Years 3 and 4 pupils from 5 schools took on the 7-a-side challenge on Wednesday on the pitches at Enfield Ignatians Rugby Club at Enfield Playing Fields. Each team played 7 matches. Winning teams were awarded 3 points, with 1 point for a draw. The overall winners were the team from St Andrew's School in Churchbury Lane, Enfield Town, who were awarded a trophy, and the runners-up were Capel Manor School in Bullsmore Lane, who were presented with medals. The other schools taking part were Raglan in Wellington Road, Bush Hill Park, George Spicer in Southbury Road, Enfield, and Hazelbury in Hazelbury Road, Edmonton. Participants in the 2-hour tournament were able to use the clubhouse facilities before and after games. 2 coaches from European champions, Saracens, helped to referee the games. It was a lovely day, said Sally Porter, Enfield Council's school games organiser. The conditions were ideal and the youngsters played with a great spirit.
And we often have stories about food companies which aren't doing so well on the hygiene front, and you'll be pleased to know this is a much more positive story. Family food firm wins international safety accolade. A family-run ethnic food distribution company has won the most significant internationally recognised food safety awards. Yadco Foods, which operates from Brimstown in Enfield, received the International Organisation for Standardisation Award at a ceremony on Tuesday. Company transport manager Robert Marampa said, "This is brilliant, a real honour. I was speechless when I heard the news. All the hard work, the whole host of procedures we as a company have passed through, it's all been truly worth it." Mr. Marampa said the drive to reach out to other peoples and countries beyond those they already export to, including Haiti, Lebanon, Congo and Sudan, is more achievable because of the ISO award.
We can offer tips for diabetics fasting in Ramadan. This is a letter from Ros Rosenblatt, Diabetes UK, the London manager. This year, the holy month of Ramadan begins on Saturday, May the 27th, and members of the Muslim community across London will be fasting for up to 19 hours a day. Ramadan can be a challenge for Muslims living with diabetes, for whom the medical implications of undertaking a prolonged fast can be extremely serious, even fatal, if not managed well. If you are living with diabetes and thinking of fasting, it's important that you consult your GP or diabetes nurse. They will outline the potential risks associated with fasting. They may also be able to provide some useful tips on how to manage the condition during Ramadan. Another person to consider talking to is your imam. Many will be able to provide advice and guidance as we work closely with them through our Community Champions programme. It's also worth mentioning that people with diabetes are not obliged to fast, and an imam can provide you with guidance on alternatives. Diabetes UK has a helpline for people who have any questions regarding diabetes, including fasting during Ramadan, so please feel free to get in touch on 0345 123 2399 or log on to www.diabetes.org.uk/Ramadan.
And before the What's On, just one sports story, and it's the only sports story that you need to know this week, Sarries' triumph. Alex Good hailed a special performance from Saracens after they became just the 4th team ever to successfully defend the European Champions Cup. A thrilling final at Murrayfield in Edinburgh on Saturday saw Sarries overcome French giants Clermont-Auvergne 28-17 to follow in the footsteps of Leicester, Leinster and Toulon by being crowned European champions for 2 years in a row. Although Sarries never trailed at any stage in the match, the result remained in the balance until the closing stages, with Good's try 7 minutes from time ultimately proving to be the key moment. Our attack was brilliant at times, and it was a joy to be on the field with the rest of the team, the fullback said. We've got a young squad, and that's very hungry to keep getting better and to keep improving, and the performance was really special. Everyone was phenomenal. We knew they were a tough side, and it took us until the 70th minute for us to break them down properly, as they started to tire. We really started to punch holes. I was the lucky one, just to go through the gap, but afterwards not too many of us were celebrating, as we were all pretty tired by that point. As a group, we've had some tough journeys along the way. The 2 finals we lost were brilliant learning curves for us, and I think as a team we've built on that and become stronger. Sarries made a flying start to the match, as tries from Chris Ashton, which saw him become the leading try scorer in the history of the competition, and George Cruis, coupled with an Owen Farrell conversion, saw them open up a 12-0 lead inside 22 minutes. But Clermont hit back and converted a try from Remy Lamourat, brought them back to within 5 points at the interval. After Farrell had slotted over a penalty, the French side closed to within a point on 52 minutes following a stunning try which saw Nick Aberdanon apply the finishing touches to a length of the field move. Farrell and Clermont's Morgan Parra then exchanged penalties, but Sarries took a firm grip on the match as it headed towards its conclusion, and Good's try finally broke Clermont's resistance, with Farrell converting before adding a further penalty to seal the win. Saracens make the trip to Exeter in the semi-finals of the Aviva Premiership playoffs on Saturday at 2:30 p.m. as they look to stay on track to complete another famous double.
And now some more details about what's on locally. On Tuesday the 23rd of May at 7:30 p.m. there will be a public meeting, Parents Against Government School Cuts, at St Luke's Church, Phipps Hatch Lane, EN2 OHL. In light of the proposed further funding cuts across Enfield, which are now estimated at £27 million, the successful public campaign opposing this has started to have a real impact and has seen parents, head teachers and teachers, elected representatives and professional associations all join forces on this. The issue is firmly on the agenda, and especially now the message seems to be getting through that the cuts are simply unsustainable and government statements around the funding of schools does not match the reality on the ground.
And next Wednesday, 24th of May, from 7:30 to 9 o'clock, you can join me and several other people, I'm sure, at Christchurch Southgate, that's on the Green in Southgate, London N14 7EG, for the election hustings for the constituency of Enfield Southgate. And the hustings will be chaired by the Vicar of Christchurch, Father Crichton Limbert, and I will be there sorting out the questions that people submit. And the hustings are your chance to question the 4 candidates standing in Enfield Southgate at the parliamentary election on the 8th of June, and you could submit questions on the night or in advance by emailing us at office@christchurch-southgate.org. The hustings is organised on behalf of Churches Together in Southgate, Oakwood and Cockfosters, but it's a public meeting open to all.
And from Saturday the 27th to Monday the 29th of May, 9 o'clock in the morning till 6 p.m, once again we will have the Enfield Pageant of Motoring on the Enfield Playing Fields, EN1 3PL. Admission is £10 per adult. Accompanied children under 15 are free. Car enthusiasts, get ready for this popular 3-day motor show offering you the chance to see more than 1,000 vintage and custom-made cars and motorbikes. The show is widely acknowledged as one of the UK's biggest and best shows of its type. Other attractions include live music, a parade of classic and vintage cars, and a host of stalls selling automobile memorabilia. Find out more, call White Webb's Museum on 020 8367 1898.
And we heard from Ali earlier about Dementia Awareness Month, and you can attend a Dementia Awareness session on Tuesday the 30th of May from 11 a.m. until 12 noon at the Ruth Winston Centre in Palmer's Green. That's at 190 Green Lanes. If you'd like to attend, give them a call so they know that you're on your way. The number 020 886 5346, 020 886 5346. And that brings us to an end for this week. Slightly different than usual with 2 readers. Caroline is working in Jersey not Diane de Jersey, but the place Jersey. And Darren isn't very well, unfortunately, this week, and John's on his holidays. But you've had Ali and me. So from the two of us, and from Peter on the controls, it's goodbye. Please remember to turn over the address label in your postal packet, put the memory stick into the packet in a closed position, and return it to us as soon as possible in readiness for the next edition. And you can call Diane de Jersey regarding any help you may require in connection with the Enfield Talking newspaper. Her number 020-8805-6578. Coming up next, the latest news and information for Greater London from InfoSound. And the Enfield Talking newspaper will be with you again with full readers, we hope, in 1 week's time.